My childhood friend, who has been fostered in my family since childhood, was selected by the factory to study abroad this year. However, his first love tried to drug him with spiked alcohol to make him miss the opportunity to go abroad and stay instead. I couldn't bear to see everyone's expectations of him go unfulfilled, so I told my parents the truth. My parents were furious and reported it to the police. His first love was arrested. Unable to bear the criticism, she hanged herself. Later, his childhood friend, who had achieved great success, blamed it all on me and took revenge, causing my entire family to die tragically. Given a second chance at life, I stood by and watched his downfall, observing his rivals rise to prominence in the tide of the times, with bright futures ahead. At the factory gate, Knox Lee, wearing a commendation flower, strode through with an air of triumph. Knox Lee is so handsome. Growing up with him since childhood, you really hit the jackpot. Sia Wang winked and said to me, in my past life, I naively believed that Knox Lee and I were destined to be together. On my 18th birthday, I mustered the courage to ask him to take a photo with me as a keepsake, but he impatiently refused. My parents also complained that I was being inconsiderate, delaying his preparations for the overseas interview. But that night, on a whim, I decided to bring Knox Lee some late-night snacks, only to see him holding Zoe Chen's hand in the factory dormitory, writing sweet vows on a piece of imported photo paper. Once Knox Lee returns from abroad, Nola, you'll be able to become a wealthy lady. Sia Wang's joke snapped me out of my reverie. Rich lady. As the daughter of the county academy's dean, I never had to worry about life and never cared about vanity. But I didn't want Knox Lee's 10 years of hard study to come to nothing in a single day, so, though I never believed in fate, I prayed for a talisman of safety in the temple. On the morning of the interview, hoping for a lucky start to the day, I went out at the crack of dawn to buy a celebratory cake. As I happily carried it home, I spotted Zoe Chen, who shouldn't have been there, lurking by the bicycle shed and talking to a man. Does this drug really work? Don't you worry, girl. Everyone back in my hometown uses this stuff. Even the most strong-willed person will obediently give in after drinking it. I listened with a flushed face and a racing heart for quite a while, thinking that Zoe Chen was going to use it for the animals at home. Unexpectedly, after taking the medicine, Zoe Chen said, I don't care if he gives in or not, I just want him to miss his chance to go abroad tomorrow. Well said. Once a man goes abroad, how could he still remember his family? The man glanced in the direction of our house, his face full of greed, and said, as long as you can marry into the Lin family, your brother, will get to enjoy the good life too. How much is that building worth? Sis, after you marry Knox Lee, can our family move in too? Zoe Chen said proudly. Of course, just wait for my good news when you get back. The siblings actually intend to harm Knox Lee. I couldn't bear to see Knox Lee's future ruined by Zoe Chen, so after returning home, I told him about Zoe Chen and her brother's scheme, hoping he would stay alert and not fall into Zoe Chen's trap. Knox Lee claimed that I was jealous of Zoe Chen and used such despicable means to tarnish her reputation. With no other options, I had to turn to my parents for help. My parents were furious and immediately called the police, who searched Zoe Chen on the spot, found drugs in her possession, and took her away. Knox Lee remained silent at the time, but the next day, he still passed the overseas assessment as scheduled. 3 years later, he returned from studying abroad, established the first joint venture in the entire county, and became the youngest, wealthiest person. My parents were filled with relief, constantly sighing with the thought that their efforts had not been in vain. But that very year, Knox Lee colluded with local thugs and, under the pretext of cracking down on monopolies, destroyed my father's academy, leaving our entire family homeless on the streets. Before he died, he sneered and grabbed my neck, saying, Nola Lin, it's all because of you. You wretch, that Zoe Chen hanged herself. You and your entire family should pay with your lives for her. You deserved to starve to death on the streets, in that abandoned factory on that rainy night. After he assaulted me, he was still not satisfied. He had someone bring an iron rod and brutally broke all 4 of my limbs. Now, having been reborn, I will no longer interfere with the fate of this ungrateful person. Childhood friend lost his way. Knox Lee's parents left him at home and never returned. He lived a difficult life alone in the countryside, lacking food and clothing. However, he was exceptionally intelligent from a young age and could recite the entire Xinhua dictionary by the age of 5, after he started school. My father, considering their family's old connection and fearing that his talent would be wasted in the poor rural conditions, specifically arranged for someone to bring him from the countryside to the county town. Loved him as if he were my own son, enrolled him in the best tutoring classes in the county, and meticulously selected everything from food and clothing to daily necessities. After he won first place in county and city-level competitions one after another, this opportunity to study abroad was all he needed to completely change his fate. But I had already made up my mind to let Knox Lee walk the path he was meant to take, and I would not interfere any further. On the day of the interview, Dad had the driver polish the car until it gleamed early in the morning and waited cheerfully in the yard. Not long after, Mom came running in a panic. "Guqiang, it's bad, Knox, he's gone." Dad thought he must have misheard. "What do you mean, gone? I've searched the whole house, even the bathroom and the rooftop. But there's no sign of Knox anywhere." Dad turned pale and swayed slightly. I quickly stepped forward to support him. "Dad, don't worry. Maybe he went to the factory to report in by himself." He patted my hand and said, "Nola makes a good point. In that case, old Zhong, take a few colleagues and search the area around the house carefully again. Xiao Li, ride your motorcycle to the places Knox often goes, check all his friends' houses, hurry up." The search continued until the foreign VIP who had come for the interview had already left, and only then did the driver quietly whisper a few words into Dad's ear. "What did you say?" "You saw it with your own eyes." The driver nodded with a grimace. "Absolutely true, Dean Lin." Dad, with a livid face, rushed over with a few people. Seeing Zoe Chen being held in Knox Lee's arms, he was so angry that he raised his hand and slapped her. Knox Lee protectively shielded Zoe Chen behind him, his face full of defiance. "Uncle Lin, it was me who got drunk and tarnished Zoe Chen's reputation. If you want to blame someone, blame me alone. Don't involve the innocent." "Nonsense." Dad was furious. "You were drunk and didn't know any better, but this female worker was sober. Why didn't she scream or call for help the entire time? Just watching you miss the interview and ruin your future. Knox, you've been deceived." Zoe Chen bit her lip tightly after hearing this, saying nothing but putting on an expression of immense grievance. Seeing this, Knox Lee said with a face full of pity, "A girl's reputation is more important than anything. She wouldn't dare to speak up, let alone scream. She cares about her reputation. But do you know that missing the factory's selection process without reason is equivalent to deceiving the leadership? It's a serious mistake." Knox Lee had been clever since childhood. How could he not understand the severity of the situation? "Missing the interview was my fault. I take full responsibility for my actions and will never implicate Uncle Lin." Dad, who had been holding on all along, fainted upon hearing these words, his vision going black. I quickly supported Dad and, together with the driver, helped him back home. "Nola." Knox Lee called out to me, his eyes filled with guilt. "I know you've had feelings for me since we were young, but my heart already belongs to Zoe Chen, and there's no room for anyone else. I'm sorry." I smiled faintly. "Brother Knox, you're joking. Some people are ambitious but lack substance. When they meet others of the same kind, they naturally attract each other." Knox Lee's face immediately darkened. Zoe Chen looked aggrieved, as if she wanted to get angry but didn't dare. "In the past, I was naive and didn't understand that relationships also require consideration of social and financial compatibility. In my previous life, I also resented why Knox Lee was so infatuated with Zoe Chen, who came from a humble background and seemed to have nothing to offer. Now, I finally see it clearly. Knox Lee came from the countryside to the county town, with a low status yet an unwillingness to be ordinary. Isn't that exactly the same mindset as Zoe Chen, a factory worker at the bottom of society? Compared to me, who could only silently care without truly understanding, it's only natural that they were more like-minded. I had anticipated that things wouldn't end well. So I arranged for a doctor from the county hospital to be on standby at home. Now it has finally come in handy. Fortunately, Miss Lin had the foresight to ask me to be on duty, or your father would have been in serious danger this time. I stood with my head bowed by my father's bedside. It wasn't foresight. I had simply finally seen through Knox Lee's true nature. Mother held my hand, gazing at my father who was in a deep sleep, tears streaming down her face without stopping. After father woke up, Knox Lee, who had been missing for a long time, finally showed up, but he wasn't there to apologize. Instead, Uncle Lin, I beg you, please agree to let me marry Zoe Chen. 3. The wedding controversy. Dad thought he must have misheard and asked Knox Lee several times to confirm, you want to marry her, Uncle Lin? You heard right, I, Knox Lee, swear that in this lifetime, I will marry no one but Zoe Chen. Mom wiped her tears, trembling with anger. Foolish, have you lost your mind? Zoe Chen knelt with a thud before her mother, her eyes brimming with tears, and said, I already belong to Knox. If I can't marry him, I'd rather die. Between the lines, she emphasized her desire for a proper marriage and cleverly shifted all the blame onto Knox Lee. It was all Knox Lee who ruined her innocence. She had done nothing wrong at all, a fraudster. How dare you make a scene here, old Zhong? Call the police and have her taken away. Upon hearing this, Knox Lee tightly held Zoe Chen and shouted at his mother in agitation, Aunt Zhong has never treated me as one of the family. Tell me, if I were your biological son, would you treat his beloved like this? How ridiculous. Everyone in the Lin family knows that, compared to me, their biological daughter, Knox Lee is more like a child of the Lin family. After he came to my home, my mother specially arranged for the kitchen to prepare signature dishes and seasonal fruits for him for all 3 meals a day. I might not get to eat them every day, but Knox Lee would never miss out on his share. Whenever he had a minor cold or fever, my father would take leave from work and stay by his bedside without leaving, taking care of him. My father dotes on him. Over all these years, he has never done any housework. With everything from food to clothing and daily necessities readily provided, he lives a more comfortable life than I, the biological daughter, do. In the end, he repaid kindness with ingratitude. What else could such a person be if not an ungrateful wretch? Mom was almost fainted from anger. I tugged at Mom's sleeve and whispered, Mom, let it go. The interview is over. Even if you drag her away, Knox Lee won't get another chance to go abroad. After quietly stabbing Knox Lee in the heart with my words, I continued, besides, you and Dad are only Knox Lee's adoptive parents. You can control him for a while, but can you control him for a lifetime? Maybe we should just let them be and let him move out with Zoe Chen. Hearing me suggest that they move out, Zoe Chen was clearly flustered. Miss Lin, it's fine if you're jealous of me and want to kick me out, but Knox Lee grew up with you after all, no matter how angry you are. You shouldn't drive him away too. While saying it's for Knox Lee's sake, deep down they were worried about living a hard life after moving out with him. Father also disagreed. How could he watch the child he had poured all his efforts into raising face such a bleak future? He propped up his weak body and sat up, looking at Knox Lee with heartfelt concern as he said, have you ever considered that to achieve success and establish yourself in society in the future, you'll need a well-educated wife to help you navigate social relationships? He glanced at Zoe Chen disdainfully. But this girl's whole family are idle, good-for-nothing street ruffians. They won't just fail to help your future development. They'll only hold you back. Knox Lee's eyes flickered, clearly somewhat shaken. But seeing Zoe Chen in tears, he stubbornly insisted, I don't care about any of that. His father clenched his fists and finally let out a long sigh. All right. Then I'll let you have your way, for rumors begin. How could you be so foolish, letting Knox mess around like that? After Knox Lee left, Mom was so anxious that she kept stomping her feet. I poured a cup of warm water for Dad and comforted Mom, saying, don't worry, Dad must have another plan. Dad patted my hand with relief. Nola, you really understand what's on my mind. Only by tasting bitterness can one grow and mature. Since he's made up his mind, let him experience the hardships of life for himself. One day, he'll come to his senses. On the day Knox Lee and Zoe Chen moved out, I personally handed Zoe Chen's factory file to her. From today onward, you are no longer an employee of our factory, and you have no further connection to our Lin family. Your future married life will depend entirely on your own choices and efforts. Zoe Chen took the file and flipped through it several times. She wasn't highly educated, so I didn't understand what she was checking and asked her, what are you looking for? I had already asked the accountant to settle Zoe Chen's due wages, and I had packed and given her all the clothes I had previously given her. I couldn't think of anything else I owed her. Zoe Chen suddenly glared at me and said indignantly, Knox Lee grew up in your family. Now that he's starting a family and building a career, shouldn't Dean Lin offer some support? It was only then that I realized she was blaming my parents for not giving them a settlement allowance. Knox Lee, who was standing beside her, remained silent, but the dissatisfaction in his eyes made it clear that he felt the same way. What ungrateful wretches. According to China's marriage law, children have the obligation to support their parents. As children, we must fulfill our filial duties, and those who violate this will face legal sanctions. Knox Lee, am I right? He frowned impatiently. So what? What are you trying to say? I smiled slightly. Since you understand the law, can you tell me which law states that adoptive parents must buy their children a house, arrange their wedding, and be responsible for their living expenses for the rest of their lives? What is this? Treating my parents like an ATM? After my sarcastic remark, Knox Lee's face turned pale and then flushed, extremely embarrassed. It was you who thought he was clever and insisted on bringing him from the countryside to the county town. Since you brought him here, you should take full responsibility. So, that's what they actually thought. My parents only brought you to the county town for school, providing you with living and educational conditions. It's not a formal adoption. If you wish, you can return to the countryside at any time. My uncle and aunt, who never returned, defied their family's advice back then. Secretly conceived a child, and eloped. They abandoned their elderly parents and were never heard from again. Knox Lee is truly their son, learning to be ungrateful at such a young age. Zoe Chen, don't grovel to her. As long as I have the ability, I'll make something of myself sooner or later. Oh really? Then I wish you the best of luck in achieving your dreams in advance. But without my family's support, Knox Lee would probably struggle to even cover his basic living expenses. Yet I never expected that in just half a month, a stranger would come knocking on my door. The man was shabbily dressed and disheveled, clearly a person from the lower rungs of society. His small eyes greedily surveyed my family's courtyard. The driver stopped him from entering, so he crouched at our front gate and burst into loud sobs. This is where my relatives live. What right do you have to stop me from entering? Fellow villagers passing by, come and see. Dean Lin is bullying others with his power. The child his family raised ruined my sister's innocence, and now they won't even let me through the gate. My young and beautiful sister, she was deceived by their family and had her feelings played with for nothing. His despicable behavior quickly drew a crowd of onlookers. I recognized this person at a glance. It was Zoe Chen's idol, good-for-nothing brother, Chen San. If we let someone like this into our home, he will surely spread rumors and slander our family everywhere in the future. I immediately blocked him at the door. My father has always been upright and above board, with nothing that can't be said in front of outsiders. Let's make things clear right here in front of everyone and let them judge who's right and who's wrong. As soon as I finished speaking, the onlookers nodded in agreement. Miss Lin is right. Dean Lin has a very good reputation in our county and handles matters fairly. Just say it here. Chen San glared at me fiercely and said ominously, fine, then I'll make it clear in public. Miss Lin, don't you regret it? Back then, my brother-in-law had his own biological parents, but it was that old fox Lin Guoqiang who, seeing how clever he was and that he had a promising future, forcibly took him away from his birth parents. Not only was he separated from his biological parents for over a decade, but the Lin family also often mistreated and exploited him. Now, just because he missed an opportunity to go abroad, they heartlessly kicked him out of the house. Everyone, judge for yourselves. Is there any family as ungrateful and treacherous as this? The onlookers sighed in disbelief. I never thought Dean Lin was that kind of person in private. I calmly responded, first of all, Knox Lee was indeed born in the countryside. See, she admitted it. Chen San laughed triumphantly. Some in the crowd showed sympathy upon hearing the word countryside. The conditions in the countryside are so poor that it's difficult for children to go to school. I continued along with their line of thought. Exactly. Everyone knows that rural conditions are tough and educational resources are scarce. My father saw that Knox Lee was exceptionally bright and couldn't bear to see him wasted in the countryside, so he brought him to the county town. My father just wanted to give him a better learning environment and let him receive a better education. As for abuse, that is absolutely not true. Anyone can ask any of our neighbors or workers. Chen San said furiously, your family will definitely take your side. At that moment, a neatly dressed young man stepped forward. I am Knox Lee's co-worker from the same factory, Ju Qingxi. I can testify for Miss Lin. Knox Lee was wearing brand-name clothes and had fair, delicate skin. There wasn't the slightest sign of him being mistreated. You're clearly spreading rumors to slander director Lin with ulterior motives. I nodded gratefully to him. Thank you, Comrade Ju, for being honest. Chen San still wanted to argue. Now that he's about to start a family and build a career, shouldn't you buy him a house to give us? To give my sister a place to settle down? No, you shouldn't, I said firmly. Knox Lee gave up the chance to go abroad just to marry your sister wholeheartedly. And he swore that he is a man of integrity who can support his wife all by himself. He has such a strong will to be self-reliant. Yet you want my parents to keep supporting him. Isn't that undermining his self-respect? When the onlookers heard that Knox Lee had given up the opportunity to study abroad, which was selected by the state, for Zoe Chen, almost everyone was stunned. A bespectacled person in the crowd said disdainfully, I thought Knox Lee had some special reason for missing the interview, but it turns out it was for a woman. So many of us are fighting tooth and nail to go abroad and gain some prestige. But he just wasted the country's cultivation and let down Dean Lin's years of training. What an ingrate. How dare such an ungrateful person have the nerve to ask the Lin family for money to buy a house? What shamelessness. I feel ashamed to be in the same factory as him. His impassioned speech won applause from the crowd. Well said. We also look down on such an ungrateful person. Seeing the situation turn unfavorable, Chen San had long since slipped away. After the crowd dispersed, I sincerely thanked Ju Qingxi. Thank you, Comrade Ju, for speaking up for justice. I am truly grateful. He waved his hand dismissively and smiled, saying, not at all, I just can't stand seeing them bully good people. Moreover, Miss Lin remained fearless in the face of danger, with clear logic and a sharp mind. You truly are exceptionally talented. I don't have any particular talent, it's just that I've experienced a life and death situation and am no longer as timid and fearful as I used to be. Comrade Ju, you flatter me. I just want to manage my own small household well. Managing a household in an orderly manner is no easier than striving for success in the outside world. I had just spoken my mind. But at the factory gate, Ju Qingxi looked at me thoughtfully, his eyes gleaming. 5 names announced. Soon, the day to announce the list of admitted candidates arrived. Knox Lee didn't go to the interview, and our family had no interest in joining in on the excitement either. The list of those going abroad is posted on the factory building. It's just for others to see today, and there's nothing special for us even if we go. Xia Wang, however, stubbornly pulled me out of the house. Who cares about looking at some list? I just want to see the young guys in our factory. Jinyu Commercial Building is right across from the factory. Xia Wang and I sat in a small restaurant on the 2nd floor, ordering 2 milk teas and a few pastries, quietly watching the crowd coming and going downstairs. This year's study abroad list is quite interesting. The 2 most outstanding technicians in the factory are competing for the only opportunity to go abroad. Let's see who will come out on top in the end, Xia Wang muttered quietly. These people probably don't know yet that your Knox Lee missed the interview. How unfortunate. Only the factory leadership knows the selection results. The workers outside are unaware of the real situation. As soon as the words were spoken, she nudged my arm. Look, who's that? Across the street, it was unmistakably Knox Lee and Zoe Chen. Zoe Chen was holding a vegetable basket. As if she had come out to buy groceries and happened to pass by here. Seeing the crowd gathered at the factory gate, Knox Lee's face darkened, and he quickened his pace, trying to leave. Isn't this Technician Lee? The list is about to be announced, and you've come just in time. Knox Lee was about to decline this kindness, when the crowd in front of the bulletin board suddenly became restless. Spring 1984, Overseas Study Opportunity, Ju Qingxi. The worker was taken aback. Meeting Knox Lee's icy gaze, he muttered awkwardly, why isn't it Technician Lee? No wonder Knox Lee looks so upset. Ju Qingxi works in the same technical department as him. Yet they have always been at odds. They are confrontational at work, and in private, they compete fiercely for the title of advanced producer in the factory. For Knox Lee, it would be one thing if someone else got this opportunity. Only Ju Qingxi was chosen, making him so jealous that he tossed and turned all night. Tormented beyond words, Knox Lee coldly shook off the person's hand, and as he turned to leave, a flash of undisguised disappointment and pain crossed his eyes. Zoe Chen stepped forward, just in time to witness his dejection. Xia Wang poked me again. Look, the show is about to begin. Zoe Chen, with tears in her eyes, looked at Knox Lee with a sense of grievance. "Knox, are you blaming me?" Knox Lee clenched his fists, holding back his emotions again and again, but in the end, he raised his hand and gently tucked Zoe Chen's wind-tousled hair behind her ear. "How could I? Even if I don't go abroad, my future achievements might not be any less than theirs." Sia Wang was astonished and clicked her tongue in amazement. "So this is what works on Knox Lee. I don't care what he's up to. It's just that he was absent from the national selection without reason." The factory leadership didn't pursue it earlier because they were busy screening candidates and had no time to deal with it. Now that the list has been announced, I'm afraid our family will also be implicated. I hurried home and told my father about this. Dad snorted coldly. If the factory leadership wanted to hold someone accountable, why wait until today? It was the newly elected Zhu Qingxi who pleaded on our behalf. The leaders are reasonable and know that our family was also a victim in the Knox Lee incident, which is why they didn't make a big deal out of it. Dad has always been a fair and upright person, and with Zhu Qingxi's help in speaking up for us, we managed to avoid trouble. But Knox Lee, alas. What a pity about Knox, Dad sighed. I'm afraid he'll never get a promotion in his lifetime, failing to live up to the factory's training. He only had his promotion qualification revoked. The punishment wasn't too severe, but how many decades does one have to start over again? 6 wedding roadblock, soon. I had no time to ponder further. As Zhu Qingxi's mother came to our home to propose marriage, Mother asked for my opinion. It's my fault. I always thought you would eventually marry. I never seriously considered your marriage prospects. She patted my hand with a smile. Your father and I think Zhu Qingxi is a good choice. He comes from a respectable family, is down to earth, and has the opportunity to study abroad. So many girls at the factory have a crush on him. Yet he has never shown interest in anyone else. He is a man of deep loyalty and righteousness, much more than your. When it came to Knox Lee, Mom's face showed worry again. I put down the half-knitted sweater. I also quite like Zhu, the co-worker. He is open-minded and understanding, able to respect my thoughts and opinions, which is rare in today's society. Matchmaking and gift-giving quickly set the wedding date. On the day filled with the clamor of gongs and drums and the deafening sound of firecrackers, I got into the wedding car wearing a red hat. As I sat in the car and it started to move, a slender, strong hand with distinct knuckles reached in through the window. "Darling, have something sweet first." It was a chocolate candy. I took it and took a small bite, the sweet flavor melting between my lips and teeth. The wedding car hadn't gone far when it suddenly stopped, and the sound of arguments rose and fell outside. Peeking through the curtain, I saw a shabby bicycle pulling a simple bridal sedan chair, blocking the intersection with us, neither side willing to yield. Looking at Knox Lee again. Though he was wearing a red groom's outfit, the clothes were crumpled and lacked any shine. In just a few months, he had lost a great deal of weight, and his complexion had turned sallow. The wedding sedan behind him was shabby and worn, with patches even on the sedan curtain. There wasn't a single decent piece of dowry behind the sedan. If it weren't for the groom's attire Knox Lee was wearing, who would have thought this was a wedding? Knox Lee seemed to sense someone watching him and looked directly at me without any attempt to hide it. I quickly put down the curtain and fixed my hair. After the marriage, Knox Lee secretly came to see me. "Nola, why did you marry Zhu Qingxi? You know I don't get along with him, so why?" I didn't want to say much to him, so I brushed him off with, "It's enough that he's a good person. His poor relationship with Knox Lee is just what I want, so I won't have to see Knox Lee often after I get married." How can you be so hasty about such an important matter as marriage? Nola, be honest with me. Do you still have feelings for me? Are you rushing to get married just to get back at me and Zoe Chen? How shameless. It almost made me sick to my stomach, seeing me staring at him without saying a word. He actually said, "Nola, I regret it. I originally thought it was just a missed opportunity to go abroad, even if I couldn't go this time. There are many masters in the factory who never went abroad and still became technical backbones." The corners of my mouth lifted slightly, my eyes filled with mockery. He always thought too highly of himself. Believing that all the good things in the world should make way for him, why should everyone and everything revolve around him? Zoe Chen's home is in shambles. The house is so small you can barely turn around, and the roof leaks when it rains. The few technical manuals I brought back from abroad were all soaked by the rainwater. The next day, I intended to take the books out to dry and salvage them, But as soon as I got up, I saw Chen San selling those precious materials as scrap paper to the recycling station. After hearing his complaint, I couldn't help but find it both amusing and tragic. Those technical manuals, which Noxley usually valued more than his own life, he wouldn't even let me flip through them, were now sold as scrap paper by that illiterate Chen San. So what, Zoe Chen and her family? Didn't you choose them yourself? But I regret it, Nola. You clearly saw I was about to make a mistake. Why didn't you stop me? If you had stopped me back then, I would be the one studying abroad now, the one being exceptionally promoted at the factory upon returning, and the one marrying you would also be me. How absurd. Wasn't it because I stopped him in my past life that he repaid my kindness with betrayal, leading to the tragic death of my entire family? He blames me simply because he doesn't want to bear the reputation of being heartless and ungrateful, making me the villain so he can achieve success in both career and love in the future. What a clever scheme he's playing. However, I've come to understand one thing: good intentions lead to bad outcomes. You reap what you sow, respect others' choices and keep your unnecessary sympathy to yourself. I pushed him away. Noxley, you're wrong. Whether you marry Zoe Chen or not has nothing to do with me. In this lifetime, whether he succeeds or fails, whether he is wealthy or poor, it has nothing to do with our Lin family. 7. Severing all ties. On the day of the homecoming visit, my parents appeared overjoyed to see me, but an indescribable worry lingered between their brows, in front of Ju Qingxi. I couldn't ask too much, so I took the opportunity while my mother showed me the new house to inquire further. My mother said that after Chen San discovered that Noxley's technical manual was quite valuable, instead of selling it as scrap paper, he sold the entire batch at a low price to a private factory he was acquainted with. The money that came into their hands wasn't used to repair the house or buy rice and flour, let alone to get work supplies for Noxley. It was all lost in the casino. Nox went to collect the debt, but that Chen San not only refused to pay but also cursed Nox, calling him a useless good-for-nothing who couldn't earn money but sure could eat a lot. To be fair, it wasn't entirely wrong. Aside from being good at studying, Noxley really didn't have much practical ability. They didn't just curse at him, they even beat Nox up badly. That girl Zoe Chen was heartless too, just standing by and watching her brother beat Nox severely, even disfiguring his face. At this point, Mom's eyes reddened. Our factory stipulates that anyone with visible facial scars cannot be assigned to work on the export production line. This way, even if the conditions are relaxed in 10 years, Noxley will no longer be young. I gently patted Mom's back and comforted her. It's okay if he can't work in foreign trade. As long as he is willing to work diligently, with his knowledge, he can support himself as a technician or an engineer. Hearing me say this, Mom immediately understood the meaning behind my words. Nola, are you, Mom? I'll say it again. He's not your and Dad's biological child. As the saying goes, you can't judge a person's heart by their appearance. When he was successful, he was already ungrateful, so there's even less to hope for now. Mom and Dad finally realized that Noxley is an ungrateful person and made up their minds to cut off all contact with him completely. 8. The door is tightly shut. Who would have thought that 3 months later, Noxley would bring a heavily pregnant Zoe Chen to kneel at my doorstep? Only my mother was at home, and I was worried she wouldn't be able to handle it. As soon as I got the news, Ju Qingxi immediately rushed back with me, after just a few months apart. A scar stretching from Noxley's brow to his chin had completely marred his once handsome features. His jet-black hair was now streaked with grey, and the way he knelt there with a hunched back made it hard to believe he was just in his early 20s. Seeing Ju Qingxi carefully supporting me, Noxley's eyes were filled with jealousy and resentment. Before he got married, he had always been one step ahead of Ju Qingxi in every way. Now, just a few months later, Ju Qingxi has returned from abroad with a bright future ahead. While he is so poor he doesn't even have a decent set of clothes, with a proud personality like Noxley's. How could he not feel hatred? Nola, please go and put in a good word with Uncle Lin. Let me and Zoe Chen come back home to live. If it weren't for Uncle Lin's strict discipline back then, I wouldn't have rebelled and done such a foolish thing. From now on, I will never talk back to Uncle Lin again and will follow all his arrangements. Even now, he still doesn't realize where he went wrong, and his words still imply that my dad was too controlling. Sister Nola, Zoe Chen spoke with a sallow face. The unpleasantness of the past is behind us. Now we are all one family, and the child in my womb will one day call you aunt. She sure knows how to claim kinship, but unfortunately, I have no intention of acknowledging it." Seeing that I remained silent, she shamelessly continued, "Knox will never be able to go abroad in this lifetime, but our child will definitely carry on his aspirations, get into a top university in the future, and bring honor to the Lin family." Does this mean our family is also supposed to cover their child's education expenses? You and I were merely factory colleagues in the past, and now even that relationship no longer exists, so you should just call me Miss Lin. As for Knox Lee, you once said that everyone in the Lin family is cold and heartless, and only Zoe Chen never looked down on your background, treated you sincerely, and even secretly brought you delicious food and useful items. But have you ever considered, without my tacit permission, how could an ordinary female worker like her get her hands on those imported foods and small luxuries? As these words were spoken, the faces of the two kneeling at my doorstep changed dramatically. Zoe Chen's face turned deathly pale. She clearly hadn't expected that I had long known about her past affair with Knox Lee but had never exposed it, not even during the wedding. Now that everything has changed, I suddenly revealed her true colors. She cried out in disbelief. "How could you possibly know? It's impossible. In my previous life, I never understood until the moment I died. Zoe Chen was so plain-looking. And there were so many pretty girls in the factory. Why did Knox Lee fixate on her? Reborn into this life, I observed carefully and finally discovered the trickery within." Knox Lee glared fiercely at Zoe Chen. "Is what Nola said true?" "No, it's not true. I worked hard to save all those things for you myself." But the panic in her eyes betrayed her guilt. Knox Lee was furious and slapped her hard across the face. "You bitch, you've ruined my entire life. If it weren't for you drugging my drink and seducing me, making me miss my chance to go abroad, I'd be a department head by now. Would I be struggling to make ends meet like this, freezing in the cold without even a decent winter coat to wear? You've ruined my future, you've ruined my entire life." As he spoke, he lunged forward and grabbed Zoe Chen by the throat, his eyes filled with murderous intent, looking exactly like Knox Lee, who had shown me no mercy in my past life. "It's too crowded here, Knox Lee. You'd better go back to your own home to settle accounts." Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished speaking, Zoe Chen suddenly let out a scream, and a pool of bright red blood appeared beneath her. Seeing this, Knox Lee turned pale and released his grip, shouting at me, "Quick, carry her inside and call a doctor." Ju Qingxi, who had been standing silently by my side, asked me, "Should we take them inside? It is indeed a matter of life and death." But it wasn't us who caused Zoe Chen's premature birth, it was Knox Lee himself. If I were to soften my heart and let them into the house, and if something were to happen to Zoe Chen and the child, Knox Lee would surely blame us for the rest of our lives. I shook my head. "The owner of the pharmacy across the street is a midwife. You should quickly carry Zoe Chen over there. It's much faster than waiting for a doctor to come to the house." But I still underestimated the viciousness of human nature. Knox Lee, watching Zoe Chen moan in pain, stubbornly insisted on using her and the child to threaten me into letting them into the house. "Zoe Chen, just hold on a little longer. If we can't find a decent place for the child to live, we might as well not have one at all. Nola is so kind-hearted, she definitely wouldn't stand by and do nothing." What were they doing all this time, when they decided to have a child? Didn't they think about how that drafty shack they live in could possibly shelter the child from wind and rain? The baby is almost due, and you still have nothing, and now you're threatening me. Knox Lee, you've gone too far. Don't forget, Zoe Chen's brother is a desperate man. If anything happens to her, even that half-decent face of yours won't be safe. After saying that, I took Ju Qingxi and went home. No matter how Knox Lee begged or raged, my door would never open for him again. 9. The outcome is sealed. 5 days later, news arrived simultaneously of Zoe Chen giving birth to a daughter and Knox Lee hanging himself. Upon hearing this, father said nothing and instantly seemed to have aged 10 years. After a long silence, he asked the messenger in a low voice, "Did he leave any words behind?" The messenger replied with a strange expression, "Yes, the night before he hanged himself, he kept muttering deliriously, saying he had a dream where he returned from studying abroad and became a factory director, and what's more, he said this life is fake." My parents didn't understand what it meant. thinking that Knox Lee was just rambling nonsense in a state of mental instability before his death. Only I knew in my heart that the reason Knox Lee took his own life was likely because he had recalled everything from his past life, after waking up and seeing the huge gap between reality and his dreams. He couldn't accept it and chose to end his life. I don't know how many times life can be given a second chance, but I am certain that a petty person like Knox Lee, who is selfish and always blames others when things go wrong, will never have a good outcome no matter how many times they are reborn. Ju Qingzi came to pick me up to go home. Small snowflakes began to drift down from the sky. I reached out to catch one, but he nervously grabbed my hand and tucked it into his pocket to warm it. "You're a mother now, yet you're still so childish. What if you catch a cold?" I smiled and linked my arm with his. "Yes, not a child anymore. I'm a child's mother now," Ju Qingzi exclaimed in pleasant surprise as he lifted me up. "Really, I'm going to be a dad. Nola, you are the best gift heaven has given me." "Yes. You are too, given a new lease on life, with him and the baby, along with my loving parents. This is the most precious gift heaven has given me." The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. My officer husband Shen Jingze's childhood friend Zhong Tiantian fell from upstairs, suffered a concussion, and insisted that I was the one who pushed her. To vent his anger for Zhong Tiantian, Shen Jingze ignored my pleas and struggles, ordering the guards to forcibly drag me, who was pregnant, into confinement. When I was released, I was covered in blood, and the child in my womb had miscarried. Shen Jingze seemed to have some regret, gently holding my hand and telling me that we were still young and could have more children. I just sneered coldly. I will not have a child with him anymore. I intentionally struck my abdomen to cause a miscarriage, only because I knew that Shen Jingze and the child in my womb were both ungrateful. They would push me to the brink for Zhong Tiantian, leaving me, with no place to be buried in death. I have lived a life where others held the knife and I was the fish on the chopping block. In this life, I will turn my tragic fate around in advance. Many years later, I became a wealthy and influential tycoon, yet Shen Jingze, who had soared to great heights in his previous life, was reduced to a penniless wreck. Comrade, the baby in your womb has suffered a severe impact and shows signs of a threatened miscarriage. You must rest in bed these next few days, or the baby may not be saved. The intermittent sounds in my ears and the pain in my abdomen and body slowly brought my blurred consciousness back to clarity. The large red slogans on the green walls, the mottled door, these seem like things that would only exist 40 years ago. But didn't I already die, after being sent to prison by Shen Jingze for 5 years? He died painfully from a terminal illness. Why would someone who is already dead see a scene from 40 years ago? Before I could fully figure it out, the hospital room door was violently slammed open. A young man in a military uniform rushed to the bed where I was lying, carrying a chilling aura. "Li Xiangwan, why did you push Tiantian so viciously? Do you realize she almost lost her life?" The words I had on the tip of my tongue were swallowed back. What's the use of denying or explaining? In my previous life, I denied it and explained it wasn't my fault, but Shen Jingze simply didn't believe me. He only trusted Zhong Tiantian. "Sweet," Shen Jingze roared at me, his face filled with anger. My gaze fell on Shen Jingze's face, which looked decades younger. Shen Jingze in his 20s was really good looking, a tall and straight nose, well-defined facial features. Even those fiery eyes staring at me were so captivating. In my past life, I was utterly infatuated with Shen Jingze's face, sacrificing everything for him without regret, bending over backward and losing my dignity. Yet in the end, I met a tragic and miserable fate. How naive I was back then. Even if I was framed by Zhong Tiantian and sent to prison by Shen Jingze, even if I was diagnosed with a terminal illness with only a few days left to live, I still kept thinking about Shen Jingze. I always believed that everything was Zhong Tiantian's scheme. And I convinced myself that Shen Jingze was deceived and innocent. Until I found out I had cancer and had only a few days left, I entrusted the doctor treating me to arrange a meeting with Shen Jingze and my son, but I was mercilessly rejected by them. The doctor sympathetically told me that Shen Jingze was accompanying Zhong Tiantian on an overseas trip to fulfill her birthday wish and had no time to visit me, urging me to reflect on my mistakes in prison. My son also sent a message, telling me to just die if I want to, so as not to embarrass him or cause trouble for his father, Shen Jingze. I was already gravely ill and barely holding on. But upon hearing those words, I spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed. I never expected to be given a second chance. Seeing Shen Jingze's youthful face again, looking at the man I had loved for decades and who had let me down, for decades, all the love in my heart vanished completely, in my previous life. If Shen Jingze had just been honest with me and told me directly that the one he loved was Zhong Tiantian, no matter how much I loved him, I would step back to let him have his way, but Shen Jingze never told me he loved Zhong Tiantian. He always insisted he just wanted to help her out of gratitude, and that he only saw Zhong Tiantian as a younger sister. Under the guise of repaying a debt of gratitude, he and Zhong Tiantian engaged in all sorts of immoral and disgraceful behavior. A bleak life spent making wedding dresses for others, and the despair and agony before death make it impossible for me to suppress the intense hatred welling up in my heart. I stared fixedly at Shen Jingze. If possible, I would want to take a fierce bite out of Shen Jingze. To vent the anger for the innocent and pitiful self from my past life, Shen Jingze didn't notice my unusual expression and continued to roar at me. I never thought you could be such a vicious and shameless person, Li Xiangwan. Don't think that just because you're pregnant, you can escape punishment. I'm telling you, this time, I won't let you off. Shen Jingze's words made me sneer. How exactly do you plan not to let me off? I want you to apologize to Tiantian. I'm going to put you in confinement and make you reflect deeply on your mistakes. Sure enough, it's the same old story. In my previous life, Shen Jingze also gave me 2 non-negotiable conditions that I had to comply with. One was to apologize and admit my mistake to Zhong Tiantian, and the other was to be confined and reflect on my mistakes as punishment. Both conditions were indispensable. No one believed my explanation, and in the end, I was forced to apologize to Zhong Tiantian. I thought Shen Jingze would let me go, considering our 5 years of marriage and the fact that I was pregnant, but I was overthinking it. On the very day I was discharged from the hospital, Shen Jingze heartlessly arranged for guards to send me to the confinement room. I begged Shen Jingze with tears streaming down my face, telling him I was pregnant and pleading with him to let me go for the sake of our child. Punish me again. But Shen Jingze showed no mercy, saying that I was malicious and unrepentant, and that I must be made to pay for my actions, the price to remember the lesson and never repeat it, during the 7 days of pitch-black confinement. The only thing I could do each day was count the numbers and wait to leave. For these 7 days, Shen Jingze never came to see me, and the guards forgot that a pregnant woman like me was locked in the confinement room. It wasn't until Shen Jingze returned from accompanying Zhong Tiantian to the capital for medical treatment that he discovered I was still locked in the confinement room. A normal person would die after 7 days without food or water. By the time I was released, I was already in a severe coma. I was fortunate to have survived, as I hadn't completely died. I was sent to the hospital and rescued after several days of emergency treatment, barely making it back from the brink of death, because I hadn't eaten or drunk anything for 7 days. My bodily functions were severely damaged, and I developed a serious stomach condition. This should also be one of the reasons why I later developed cancer and was bound to die. When I was released, Shen Jingze felt guilty for a while and treated me very well. I thought he loved me, and because of that love, I forgave him. But later, Zhong Tiantian told me that Shen Jingze was only nice to me because he was afraid I would report him to his superiors. After all, if I were to die in confinement with 2 lives lost, Shen Jingze's career would be affected. I didn't believe Zhong Tiantian's words, so I fell into one vicious cycle after another, in my previous life. The pitiful me kept deluding myself until the very end, believing that Shen Jingze loved me and that he was only influenced by Zhong Tiantian. It's just deception. In this lifetime, I know all that has passed, and I will never be fooled by Shen Jingze's facade again, because no kind of love should bring endless harm. I looked at Shen Jingze and said word by word, I'm not wrong, I won't apologize, and you have no right to put me in confinement. Upon hearing this, Shen Jingze was furious. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. Since you are so stubborn, don't blame me. Shen Jingze's veins bulged on his forehead as he shouted outside, Take Li Xiong, WN to the confinement room for reflection. I was dragged by the guards to the detention room. In my previous life, I cared about saving face and wanted to preserve Shen Jingze's dignity, so I chose to remain silent and let the guards take me to the detention room. This time, I won't make such a foolish mistake. If the guards try to seize me, I'll scream at the top of my lungs. Murder, Shen Jingzi is trying to kill me, his lawful wife, and the child in my womb, all for the sake of his mistress Zhong Tiantian. Help, help, I'm wronged. Shen Jingzi didn't expect me to cry out in protest so shamelessly. Everyone around looked over, whispering and making him lose face. Shen Jingzi had no choice but to cover my mouth himself. Resentment made me bite down hard on the hand he used to cover my mouth. Blood flowed into my mouth, the metallic taste spreading, and I saw Shen Jingzi's features contort in pain. Does it hurt? It must hurt. After all, it's bleeding. But this pain is nothing compared to the agony I endured in my past life. I was escorted all the way to the confinement room under the watchful eyes of onlookers. And those who witnessed the scene were all whispering and discussing. What did Li Xiangwan do wrong to be confined like this? I heard she pushed Zhong Tiantian. She caused Zhong Tiantian to be seriously injured, so Chief Shen, upholding justice, made Li Xiangwan reflect on her actions. Is that so? I guess she brought this upon herself. That might not be entirely fair to say. Li Xiangwan has a gentle personality and doesn't seem like someone who would be so vicious. Besides, isn't she pregnant? Look, her forehead is still bleeding. For Commander Shen to treat his own wife so harshly over an outsider is really too heartless. Do you? Yes. Commander Shen is far too concerned about that Zhong Tiantian. Commander Shen is a person of strong emotions, clear about gratitude and grudges. Her concern for Zhong Tiantian is out of a sense of repayment. Even so, it feels excessive. Li Xiangwan is pregnant, isn't she? The law doesn't immediately sentence pregnant women to death for murder, let alone this being just a simple dispute. Chief Shen is far too biased in favor of Zhong Tiantian. The surrounding murmurs made Shen Jingzi's face turn ashen. He never dreamed that someone as gentle and serene as me would cause him such great embarrassment. After I was thrown into the confinement room, he ordered the guards to lock the door. Li Xiangwan, I never expected you to be such a shrew. I originally intended to confine you for 7 days, but seeing how you are, 7 days is clearly not enough. Reflect on your actions for half a month. After saying this, Shen Jingzi left in a rage. The door of the confinement room was shut, leaving the inside pitch dark and devoid of daylight. In my previous life, I spent 7 terrifying days here, on the brink of death from unconsciousness, and after barely recovering, I was framed by Zhong Tiantian, causing a premature birth. To give birth to the unwanted child in my belly, I suffered immensely, hemorrhaged severely, and had my uterus removed. I poured all my love into the only child in my womb, but this wretched child, just as vicious and shameless as his biological father Shen Jingzi, actually prefers Zhong Tiantian over me, his own mother. Thinking of the suffering I endured in my past life, a cold smile appeared at the corner of my lips. This vicious and shameless wretch will not be given a chance to survive. I clenched my hand into a fist and began striking my lower abdomen with forceful blows, one after another. Half an hour later, my cries of pain erupted with earth-shattering intensity. Those who heard the noise came and opened the confinement room, only to find me lying on the ground, covered in blood. I had a miscarriage. I was sent to the hospital covered in blood. Shen Jingzi was originally by Zhong Tiantian's bedside, but when he heard from the guard that I had a miscarriage and was sent to the hospital, he jumped up in alarm. He rushed out of the ward in a hurry, completely unaware of the triumphant smile in Zhong Tiantian's eyes on the sickbed. After my uterine evacuation was completed and I was wheeled out of the operating room, I immediately saw Shen Jingzi standing outside with a grim expression. He stepped forward to take my hand, but I gave him one word: get lost. Shen Jingzi took 2 steps back, watching in confusion as the nurse wheeled me past him. After the nurse finished administering my 4-drip, Shen Jingzi actually followed me into the room again. Standing in the hospital room, his face showed a rare trace of sorrow. Is he sad because the child is gone? How could that be? In the previous life, that ungrateful child who always sided with Zhong Tiantian kept saying that if he didn't exist, Shen Jingzi would have divorced me and married her long ago. Zhong Tiantian is gone, because of his existence. Shen Jingzi reluctantly maintains this marriage of convenience with me, so now that the unwanted child is gone, shouldn't Shen Jingzi be happy? I watched as Shen Jingzi slowly walked to the bedside. I looked at him with an indifferent gaze, neither happy nor sad. Shen Jingzi reached out to touch me, but perhaps my expression was too cold, so he withdrew his hand. He said in a dry tone, "WN, I didn't expect the child to. Please take good care of yourself. We can still have another child in the future. Haha, will there still be children? Is this to comfort me? After all, such a major incident as my miscarriage in the confinement room must have already spread throughout the military district. Shun Jingze is highly respected for his strict military discipline, but being so heartless to his own partner, I wonder what people outside will say about him. Gossip, not to mention that my miscarriage involved another woman. Shun Jingze's kindness towards Zhong Tiantian is evident to all. So I imagine rumors must have started to spread by now, right? Yes, I will definitely add fuel to the fire and make the rumors even more intense. As I was thinking this, a nurse hurriedly pushed the door open and came looking for Shun Jingze. Chief Shun, Comrade Zhong has fallen and fainted, according to the nurse. Zhong Tiantian wanted to come see me after learning about my miscarriage, but she was too weak and collapsed in the hallway after taking just a few steps. Zhong Tiantian has always used such tactics to lure Shun Jingze away. It had always worked in the past, but this time, it might backfire on her. Shun Jingze was worried that Zhong Tiantian had left, and I lay in bed, crying my eyes out, hearing my loud sobs. The nurses, doctors, and even people from the neighboring ward came over. Everyone knew I had lost my child and kindly tried to comfort me. I wiped away my tears as I recounted to the nurses, doctors, and curious fellow patients all the things Zhong Tiantian and Shun Jingze had done. Affair. Since Zhong Tiantian arrived, the other half on my marriage certificate, Shun Jingze, has completely lost his heart. Shun Jingze arranged a job for her and gave the majority of his salary to Zhong Tiantian to spend. Zhong Tiantian clings to Shun Jingze all day, deliberately provoking me to argue with him, and constantly finds excuses to call Shun Jingze away. She even doesn't hesitate to use the excuse of being afraid of thunder and rain late at night to call Shun Jingze away and have him accompany her the entire night. Zhong Tiantian even brazenly threatened to harm the child in my womb and force me to divorce Shun Jingze. Everything I said is based on the facts of what Zhong Tiantian has done, and people in the military district have actually seen it with their own eyes. They just didn't know that the two of them were alone together in a room late at night in private. As a result, everyone's gaze took on a different meaning. On top of that, I've now lost the child in my womb, and Shun Jingze has been indifferent to me after the miscarriage, yet he responds to Zhong Tiantian's every call, coming and going at will. Everyone sees it clearly. Nurses, doctors, and fellow patients were all filled with righteous indignation upon hearing it, judging by their expressions. I knew that the affair between Shun Jingze and Zhong Tiantian would spread throughout the entire military compound in no more than 2 days. Shun Jingze was summoned for a talk by his superiors. Shun Jingze explained to his superior that his relationship with Zhong Tiantian was completely innocent and that he was only helping her out of gratitude. The leader also believed Shun Jingze, but the rumors outside were too widespread. The leader, who was Shun Jingze's former superior and had always held him in high regard, reminded Shun Jingze to be mindful of his reputation and to maintain a distance from Zhong Tiantian. When Shun Jingze appeared at the hospital again, his entire demeanor was gloomy. He closed the door and immediately warned me. Li Xiangwan, you almost ruined me. Because of your willfulness, I was called in for a talk by the leadership. Do you know how much this will affect my future promotions? I curled my lips. Good. It's better if it has an impact. In my past life, I endured humiliation and suffered endless torment, while Shun Jingze and Zhong Tiantian lived carefree and self-satisfied lives. After going through such a painful experience, how could I possibly let him have a smooth official career in this life like he did in the last? Since I've been reborn, I should do something to make my enemies unhappy, shouldn't I? Shun Jingze doesn't know what I'm thinking. I love him so much and care deeply about his future. He knows I will listen to him without any complaints or regrets. He instructed me, from now on, you must clarify every rumor circulating outside one by one. You must let everyone know that Zhong Tiantian and I are just like siblings. Are you really just like siblings? As far as I know, you and she share no blood relation. I retorted, seeing my sarcastic smile. Shun Jingze found it irritating and continued unhappily. If I had any other thoughts about Zhong Tiantian, why would I have married you? In my past life, this was how he brainwashed me, and foolishly, I believed him. Now, hearing his familiar explanation, I couldn't help but laugh again. Shun Jingze was somewhat annoyed by my laughter. Xiangwan, Now is not the time to be throwing a tantrum or being jealous. It's because you didn't listen to me that we've ended up in this situation. I'm warning you, behave yourself, if you keep being this unreasonable. I'll divorce you. Divorce is exactly what I've been hoping for. I nodded immediately. Great, let's get divorced. We'll go get divorced right now. Shen Jingzi didn't expect me to say that, and his expression stiffened. What are you making a fuss about? I'm not making a fuss. I'd rather get a divorce than share my husband with another woman. Let's go our separate ways and each find our own future. Hearing this, Shen Jingzi was furious. What do you mean, Li Xiangwan? Ours is a military marriage, not something that can be taken lightly. You can get a divorce, so, are you going to endure this injustice for the rest of your life? Are you sure you want your good sister to be a mistress for life? The term mistress didn't exist back in those days. Shen Jingzi was taken aback. What's a mistress? What is that thing? Shen Jingzi was pressing me for an answer, but of course, I wouldn't explain in detail. Shen Jingzi, do you want me to believe you, from now on? You are not allowed to have any contact with Zhong Tiantian. Can you do that? To my surprise, Shen Jingzi actually agreed. From now on, I'll leave all matters regarding Zhong Tiantian to you. I promise I won't have any private contact with her again. This change was something that didn't happen in my past life. It was within my expectations that Shen Jingzi would choose to back down after weighing the pros and cons for his promotion. Zhong Tiantian, however, doesn't have such a high level of awareness. I believe she will quickly stir up trouble if she can't see Shen Jingzi, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Zhong Tiantian will do. After all, since I've been reborn, I should at least reclaim some of the grievances and pain I suffered in my past life, right? Zhong Tiantian doesn't know that Shen Jingzi has already decided to keep his distance from her for the sake of his career. She continued to feign illness and lie in the hospital, playing the victim just as she had in her past life, waiting for Shen Jingzi to visit her. After waiting for several days without Shen Jingzi showing up, Zhong Tiantian couldn't hold back any longer. She asked countless people to relay exaggerated accounts of her condition, hoping to persuade Shen Jingzi to visit her. Upon hearing that Zhong Tiantian was vomiting blood, Shen Jingzi was frantic with worry. His superior had given him a strict order, which he dared not defy, so in the end, he had no choice but to go. Find me. Zhong Tiantian was fully expecting Shen Jingzi to come see her, but instead, she got me. Not seeing the Shen Jingzi she had been longing for day and night, and making sure no one else was around, Zhong Tiantian asked me fiercely, "What are you here for?" "Come to see you. Let's see what mischief you're up to." I wandered around the hospital room. "Wasn't it said that you were dying? You look perfectly fine with rosy lips and white teeth." Zhong Tiantian, faking an illness. Don't you think this kind of trick is too outdated? After I exposed her, Zhong Tiantian didn't bother pretending anymore. Li Xiangwan, it doesn't feel good to lose a child, does it? I was the one who killed your child. Yes, but Brother Jingzi doesn't care about you. He only trusts me. For my sake, he has to wrong you, his rightful wife. Your heart, it must be really tough in there, right? You're overthinking it, I said with a light smile. As long as Shen Jingzi stays away from you, that disgusting woman, what does it matter to lose a child? Zhong Tiantian, you probably don't know, Shen Jingzi won't come to see you again. Zhong Tiantian was taken aback. What do you mean, literally speaking? There are rumors going around now that you and Shen Jingzi are having an affair, and Shen Jingzi, to protect his reputation, is going to avoiding you to prevent suspicion. You. Zhong Tiantian was stunned by my words. Li Xiangwan, what have you done? Don't worry, I'll explain it to you slowly. I walked to the bedside and looked down at Zhong Tiantian. Zhong Tiantian, I know your dirty intentions. You just want to kill the child in my womb, break me and Shen Jingzi apart, and become Shen Jingzi's other half, right? So I took the initiative to fulfill your wish. To be honest, I was the one who deliberately got rid of the child in my womb. You. The news about having an affair with Shen Jingzi was also something I deliberately spread. How is that possible? Are you crazy? Zhong Tiantian knew how much I cherished the child in my womb, how much I loved Shen Jingzi, and how much I cared about his reputation. Now, I had not only actively gotten rid of the unwanted child but also tarnished Shen Jingzi's reputation. Zhong Tiantian found it hard to believe and was so furious she could hardly contain herself. Smoke. She knew how severe the consequences of my actions would be for her and Shen Jingzi. You shameless woman, how dare you use your own flesh and blood to scheme against me? How vicious your heart is. Compared to you, it's like a small witch meeting a great one, Zhong Tiantian. From now on, I will make you experience the pain I once endured. Is that so? Then let's see who will have the last laugh. Zhong Tiantian raised her hand and slapped her own face fiercely, twice in a row. With 2 loud slaps, both sides of Zhong Tiantian's face immediately swelled up significantly. Zhong Tiantian truly spared no mercy on herself. Her lips were already bleeding. Licking the crimson blood with her tongue, Zhong Tiantian glared at me with venom and shouted loudly, "Li Xiangwan hit me, help." After saying that, she jumped off the bed and rushed barefoot toward the door, but just as Zhong Tiantian had rushed out 2 steps, she found herself unable to move an inch. I grabbed Zhong Tiantian's hair from behind and forcefully pulled her back, just like how Zhong Tiantian slapped herself to frame me. I also used all my strength to pull Zhong Tiantian's hair, quantity. I could see the fierce expression of pain on Zhong Tiantian's face, amid her screams. I grabbed Zhong Tiantian by the hair and slammed her hard against the wall, again and again. Zhong Tiantian never expected me to take action. After all, I used to be a pushover, gentle, kind, and timid. My brutal, forceful slamming made Zhong Tiantian scream, and she soon passed out from the pain. Looking at Zhong Tiantian lying unconscious on the ground, I stepped outside and wiped my hands over my eyes, soon bursting into tears. Nurses in the hallway, hearing the noise, hurried over and, seeing me in tears and looking utterly miserable, immediately stopped to ask, "Comrade Li, what's wrong? Who hurt you?" The nurses who rushed over were all familiar faces during my hospitalization after the miscarriage. I had gained the sympathy of many doctors and nurses, plus, Zhong Tiantian wasn't even sick and had been occupying the hospital bed pretending to be ill, which made the doctors and nurses very impatient with her. I cried so hard I could barely catch my breath. "I'm done for, I'm definitely done for, Zhong Tiantian." She slapped herself and framed me, and now she's pretending to faint and lying on the ground. Slapping herself and pretending to faint. Several nurses exchanged glances. Zhong Tiantian has a bad character. She acts arrogantly in the hospital, relying on Shen Jing's support. The nurses were already annoyed by her condescending attitude, and knowing that she was the one who came between me and Shen Jing's marriage made them despise her even more. I continued to cry. What should I do? What on earth should I do? Now I'm in a situation where even jumping into the Yellow River couldn't wash me clean. If Shen Jingze finds out, he will definitely blame me. I'm doomed. This is too much. Comrade Li, don't be afraid, we'll testify for you. Several nurses immediately stood by my side. Thank you, but she's still lying on the ground pretending to be unconscious. How should we handle this? We'll go in with you, to take a look, accompanied by several nurses. I returned to the ward, where Zhong Tiantian lay unconscious on the ground. Several nurses looked at her with disgust. Enough, stop pretending, get up. The unconscious Zhong Tiantian naturally did not respond. Wiping my tears, I walked over, crouched down, and reached out to touch Zhong Tiantian. Stop pretending, get up now. As I touched Zhong Tiantian, the needle tip I was holding in my hand forcefully pierced into her waist. That was the large sewing needle I specifically brought to deal with Zhong Tiantian, measuring a full 6 to 7 centimeters long. The effect of such a long sewing needle piercing into the flesh was predictable. Zhong Tiantian, still unconscious, let out a sharp cry of pain. As Zhong Tiantian opened her eyes, I swiftly pulled out the sewing needle and hid it in my sleeve. The intense pain made Zhong Tiantian sit up abruptly, her gaze meeting the malicious smile in my eyes. Hatred and anger made Zhong Tiantian raise her hand without thinking and slap me. A nurse nearby grabbed Zhong Tiantian's hand. "What's wrong with you?" Seeing this, several other nurses rushed forward and restrained Zhong Tiantian. Unable to move after being restrained, Zhong Tiantian was stunned. She, who was usually clever at scheming and calculating, quickly regained her pitiful, heart-wrenching demeanor after a moment of shock. She complained to the nurses holding her down. Li Xiangwan hit me. She slapped my face and grabbed my hair, banging my head against the wall. She deliberately hurt me. I'm going to call the police and have her arrested. Zhong Tiantian fully expected to gain support after telling the truth, but the nurses only looked at her with contempt. "All right, Comrade Zhong. Stop pretending. We know you're staging this act to slander Comrade Li. This kind of thinking is unacceptable and must be corrected immediately. I'm not pretending, I really am." My head was throbbing intensely, my face hurt, and of course, the spot on my waist where I had pricked myself with a needle was also in pain, Zhong Tiantian explained eagerly, but no one believed her. Several nurses all sided with me. Comrade Li, don't be afraid, we will definitely testify for you. All of this was orchestrated by Zhong Tiantian herself, and acted out by her. Zhong Tiantian's head was truly aching, and her face hurt too, but no one believed her. Several nurses were shouting about calling the police and even pulled out Zhong Tiantian's ridiculous medical record. You're pretending to be sick and occupying a hospital bed without any real illness. We will definitely report this truthfully, Zhong Tiantian softened. The only reason she could manipulate Shen Jingze was because he cared for and liked her. Others weren't her parents or relatives, so naturally, they wouldn't indulge her. Whether it's good or bad, it's clear to the onlooker. Zhong Tiantian herself also knew that the consequences of making a big fuss would be unfavorable to her, so she gritted her teeth and swallowed her anger. Surrounded by nurses, I was escorted out, and I glanced back at Zhong Tiantian unintentionally, flashing a provocative smile. Zhong Tiantian, this is just the beginning, the best is yet to come. After giving Zhong Tiantian a small lesson, I returned home feeling quite pleased, to my surprise. The ever-busy Shen Jingze was actually at home for once. He had bought the oranges and candies I love, and as soon as I got back, he asked about Zhong Tiantian. How is Tiantian doing? You're really concerned. If it weren't for the fear of hindering his promotion, Shen Jingze would have rushed to the hospital to see Zhong Tiantian by now. Right, I replied expressionlessly, she's doing just fine. After all, she still has the energy to frame and slander me. What do you mean? Shen Jingze was taken aback. I went to see Zhong Tiantian as you suggested and even bought some fruit, but she didn't appreciate it, threw the fruit away, and ended up slapping herself in the face, faking a faint to frame me. If it weren't for the nurse at the hospital who witnessed it right at the door, I would have been wrongfully accused by her today. How is that possible? Shen Jingze's face showed disbelief. If you don't believe me, you can go ask the nurses at the hospital. It wasn't just one person who witnessed her framing me, it was 4 people. Shen Jingze fell into a rare silence. Why would she frame you? You don't know. I looked at Shen Jingze and retorted. Shen Jingze shook his head, and I sneered. Zhong Tiantian said I'm not worthy of being your wife, and that she is. Shen Jingze, who had a serious expression, changed his expression upon hearing this. Here we go again. Li Xiangwan, why do you never learn? How many times have I told you? Tiantian and I have a sibling-like relationship. There's absolutely no way between her and me. But you two aren't siblings, are you? Whatever the case, I have a clear conscience. Shen Jingze even warned me. Behave yourself and don't cause me any trouble. As if sensing that his tone was too harsh with me, he softened it. Xiangwan, be good and listen to me. I was wrong about the child, and I apologize to you. We can have another child in the future. He thought that allowing me to have a child was a great favor to me, but he had no idea that I had long since become a different person inside. I will absolutely not bear a child for Shen Jingze. He can stop dreaming. Zhong Tiantian suffered a real concussion after I hit her and was hospitalized for several days. During these days, she didn't forget to cause trouble, making several calls to Shen Jingze using the hospital phone. She also had someone help her deliver a letter to Shen Jingze. After failing to get any response from Shen Jingze, Zhong Tiantian panicked and left the hospital to personally look for him. Zhong Tiantian, on the verge of tears, knocked on the door of Shen Jingze and me, only to see him having lunch with me. Seeing Shen Jingze put a piece of spare rib into my bowl, Zhong Tiantian couldn't believe her eyes. She sobbed, "Brother Jingze, are you not going to take care of me anymore?" Looking at Zhong Tiantian's swollen face and her pitiful, sickly appearance, how could Shen Jingze not be moved? "Tiantian, how could I not take care of you? I've just been too busy lately." Zhong Tiantian threw herself into Shen Jingze's arms, crying, "I thought you didn't want me anymore. Brother Jingze, I was so afraid you'd abandon me. You promised my parents you'd take care of me." Woo-woo. Zhong Tiantian's parents had done Shen Jingze a great favor, and at the mention of them, a look of guilt flashed across his face. I thought Zhong Tiantian would take the opportunity to accuse me of hitting her and drive a wedge between me and Shen Jingze, but it seems she's gotten smarter. Not a single word was mentioned about me taking care of her in the hospital. She actually just reminisced and bonded with Shen Jingze, and in the end, she even tearfully apologized to me in front of him. "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry, my presence has made things difficult for you. Don't worry, once I recover, I'll transfer to another place. So you won't have to worry about me affecting your relationship with brother Jingza anymore." After saying that, Zhong Tiantian actually knelt in front of me, kowtowing repeatedly, begging for my forgiveness. It has to be said that Zhong Tiantian's strategy of retreating to advance was indeed effective. Shun Jingza was heartbroken to the extreme and immediately went over to help Zhong Tiantian up. "Your sister-in-law is not that petty, Tiantian, we won't go anywhere else. We'll stay right here so I can take care of you." Zhong Tiantian stood up with Shun Jingza's help and began to emotionally recount the past. I couldn't bear to listen any longer and walked away. I clearly know in my heart that Zhong Tiantian has learned to behave, and I also know she can't rush to complain about me right away. She's using a retreat to advance, trying to make Shun Jingza feel sorry for her, and then she'll use the same old tricks against me. I went out for a stroll for a few hours and came back, but Zhong Tiantian was gone. Shun Jingza was sitting alone in the living room. When he saw me return, he said, "Xiangwan, we need to talk." "Great." I nodded and sat down opposite him. "What do you want to talk about?" "Let's talk about Tian." Shun Jingza grabbed my hand and said, "Xiangwan, my feelings for Tian are truly just that of siblings. You know her parents have been very kind to me, and I have no way to repay them. They only have Tian. With such a sweet daughter, I can only repay her with sweetness." "Fine, if you want to repay a favor, I won't stop you. You don't need to inform me specifically about what you want to do with Zhong Tiantian. I don't care, Xiangwan, don't say things in anger, I know you've misunderstood. Thinking Tian and I have some improper relationship. I swear, I truly only see Tian as a little sister. The one I want to spend the rest of my life with is you. In my past life, hearing such a heartfelt confession from him would have made me fall for it. Foolishly devoting myself to him without any regrets. It's a pity I'm not that foolishly Xiangwan from my past life, whose heart was only filled with love." I withdrew my hand. "I understand what you mean. Is there anything else?" Seeing that I wasn't moved by his deep affection, Shun Jingza was very surprised. He took my hand in his again and spoke earnestly. "In the evening, I'm heading out on a mission and will be away for a while. After I leave, you need to get along peacefully with Tian. Tian has promised to listen to you from now on, so you must fulfill your responsibilities as her sister-in-law. I'm entrusting Tian to you. Wait for me to return." This had a somewhat solemn tone. As if entrusting a loved one to my care, I raised an eyebrow and said, "All right, I'll definitely take good care of your sweet little sister, Tian." Shun Jingza led the team on a mission to the south. Before leaving, he repeatedly reminded both me and Zhong Tiantian to maintain a harmonious relationship. Both Zhong Tiantian and I nodded in tacit agreement. Harmonious coexistence is impossible. I know Zhong Tiantian won't let it go, and neither will I, once Shun Jingza returns from this mission. Zhong Tiantian and I will settle this once and for all. It's either her death or mine. In our exchanged glances, both Zhong Tiantian and I held the same unwavering resolve. The first day Shun Jingza left, Zhong Tiantian and I got along harmoniously. She took the initiative to call me sister-in-law and came to help me with chores and cooking. On the second day Shun Jingza left, Zhong Tiantian bought me a piece of clothing and a pair of shoes, and even treated me to a movie. She affectionately held my arm, calling me sister-in-law repeatedly, letting others in the compound witness our closeness firsthand. We come and go together, supporting each other like true sisters-in-law, as if the previous unhappiness never happened. Just like before, on the 10th day after Shun Jingza left, Zhong Tiantian knocked on my door early in the morning and brought me breakfast. "Sister-in-law, I'm off today, how about we go for a walk by the river?" "Great, I gladly agree." Zhong Tiantian had already prepared lunch snacks and warmly linked arms with me as we walked out the main gate. When we encountered people we were familiar with, Zhong Tiantian took the initiative to greet them and told them she was going with me to the riverside for a spring outing. After informing about 10 people along the way, Zhong Tiantian and I took the food, hopped on our 28-inch bicycles, and headed straight for the small river. Just as we were about to arrive, I said I had a stomachache and needed to find a place to relieve myself, so I left for a while. When I finally reached the riverbank, Zhong Tiantian had already been waiting for me for over an hour. Her face was full of impatience, and she was pacing restlessly in place, her eyes filled with resentment. Muttering under her breath, I cleared my throat and said, "Tian, Sorry to keep you waiting. Seeing me, Zhong Tiantian immediately changed her expression. As if the previous resentment was just a trick of my eyes. Sister-in-law, the scenery here is so beautiful. I borrowed a camera, let me take a few photos of you. I happily agreed and stood by the river, letting Zhong Tiantian take a few pictures of me, several times. Zhong Tiantian let out cheerful laughter and rushed toward me, but I cleverly avoided her each time while standing by the river. I laughed heartily, while Zhong Tiantian's laughter grew increasingly cold. After several failed attempts to pounce on me, Zhong Tiantian took the initiative to lay out the picnic mat and set out the food. She spread the picnic mat by the river, choosing the side facing the water for herself and leaving the side closer to the river for me to sit on. I'm starving, sister-in-law, come and eat quickly. Zhong Tiantian enthusiastically handed me the food, but I didn't take it. Instead, I stared straight at Zhong Tiantian and said, "Go on, what's your intention?" "What intention could I possibly have?" Zhong Tiantian put on a smile, and I lowered my voice. "I know you just tried to find an opportunity to push me into the river and then fall in yourself to make it look like I pushed you in. No, having succeeded once, you're trying this again. Let me guess what you're planning to do." I looked at Zhong Tiantian's pale face. "You put something in the food to set me up, Zhong Tiantian. Do you think I'm that foolish, knowing you're a venomous snake? I wouldn't be on guard against you at all. You found out, I thought I could fool you for a few days, but I didn't expect you to be so clever." The mask was torn off. Zhong Tiantian also dropped the act. "Li Xiangwan, since you already know, I won't hide it from you anymore. Today is the day you die." With those words, she lunged at me. I was sitting with my back to the river when Zhong Tiantian lunged at me, and we both fell into the water together. This was Zhong Tiantian's scheme to trap me in my previous life. In my previous life, Zhong Tiantian lured me to the riverbank, pushed me into the water, and framed it as a murder case where I was trying to kill her. I know how to swim, but Zhong Tiantian does not. Not long after falling into the river, someone arranged by Zhong Tiantian came to rescue her. Then they helped Zhong Tiantian testify that I intended to harm her. Everyone believed Zhong Tiantian, and Shen Jingze also believed her words. So he upheld justice by turning against his own and sent me to prison. In this lifetime, Zhong Tiantian framed me a full 30 years earlier than in the previous life. If it were the Li Xiangwan from my previous life, she would definitely be dead for sure, but I am not the Li Xiangwan from my previous life. When Zhong Tiantian asked me to go to the river, I knew exactly what she was planning. I knew Zhong Tiantian had found witnesses waiting to frame me. So I decided to fulfill her wish to bring about her own downfall. As I fell into the river, I immediately grabbed Zhong Tiantian's head and pressed it into the water, making sure she drank her fill all at once. Zhong Tiantian gulped down the drink until her eyes rolled back, and as she passed out with her eyes white, I grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the jagged shore. The rock, one after another. Zhong Tiantian's pretty face was covered in blood, but it wasn't enough. In my previous life, I had my uterus removed and could never have children. How could I ever forget such pain, since I've been given a second chance? Zhong Tiantian should also get to experience the feeling of losing her uterus. The steel bar prepared by the riverbank long ago pierced through Zhong Tiantian's lower body. I watched as the blood slowly stained the river red. Then, satisfied, I dragged Zhong Tiantian by her hair toward the shore, screaming for help at the top of my lungs. The witness Zhong Tiantian had found arrived just in time, and she was rushed to the hospital. I lay on the ground by the river, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Now it's time to see Shen Jingze's performance. Shen Jingze returned only a week later. Upon hearing the tragic news of Zhong Tiantian's injury, he rushed to the hospital immediately. Zhong Tiantian had been successfully resuscitated but, like me in my previous life, lost the chance to become a mother. She was even worse off than I had been in my past life. She was disfigured, her face covered in pitted scars. Zhong Tiantian grabbed Shen Jingze and burst into tears, accusing me of plotting against her. Zhong Tiantian had been waiting for this day for a long time, but the outcome was not what she had expected. She was disfigured, while I remained unharmed. Zhong Tiantian woke up and said she didn't regret it, but that was a lie. She couldn't understand why I had fought back so fiercely. She couldn't understand why she had gone from being the perpetrator to the victim. At this point, Zhong Tiantian knew she had no other way out. She was determined to pin it on me, to make me pay the price. She was determined to exploit Shen Jingze's sense of gratitude to make him take responsibility for her. Sure enough. Upon hearing that I was the one who caused Zhong Tiantian to end up like this, Shen Jingze was furious. Just like in the previous life, Zhong Tiantian found a few capable accomplices to serve as witnesses. The accomplice witnesses all spoke in unison, supporting Zhong Tiantian's accusations against me, and they made it sound very convincing. They claimed that after Shen Jingze left, I had been bullying Zhong Tiantian the whole time. Zhong Tiantian tried to please me by buying me clothes and shoes, doing household chores, and even inviting me for a spring outing, hoping to change my opinion of her. Little did she expect that I would cruelly attempt to harm Zhong Tiantian. They witnessed with their own eyes as I pushed Zhong Tiantian into the water, with both evidence and witnesses present. I am indeed the one to blame. Just like in the previous life, there is only one path to take, and that is going to prison. Shen Jingze is furious at my viciousness and shamelessness. He feels sorry for Zhong Tiantian's current situation and promises her that he will give her an explanation, and I have been waiting at home for Shen Jingze's furious wrath. In the past few days, while waiting for Shen Jingze to come back and cause trouble for me, I've already packed my luggage in my free time. I sold most of the furniture in the house, and even the bicycle was sold. I sewed all the money into my clothes. I've already made a detailed plan. Just waiting to break up with Shen Jingze once and for all. The door was kicked open with a heavy thud, and Shen Jingze stormed in. He grabbed my collar and yanked me up. Li Xiangwan, why did you do this? I struggled to pry his fingers off. Shen Jingze, if I told you none of this had anything to do with me, and it was all Zhong Tiantian's scheme, would you believe me? You're talking nonsense. Shen Jingze naturally didn't believe me and was so angry that he cursed. Li Xiangwan, Tiantian can't swim, but you can. Would someone who can't swim be foolish enough to scheme against someone who can? Person, just like in the previous life, Shen Jingze firmly believed that Zhong Tiantian wouldn't take such a risk. He angrily questioned me. Besides, if Tiantian was the one scheming against you, would she have ended up disfigured and unable to have children for life? I sneered. It's very simple to explain. She miscalculated and made a mistake, even after all this. You're still stubbornly refusing to see reason. Li Xiangwan, do you think I must protect you? Must I defend you unconditionally? Do you even realize that what you're doing is a crime? This could land you in jail. Of course I know, but none of this is my fault. Zhong Tiantian brought this upon herself. You still refuse to repent. Li Xiangwan, you are more vicious and shameless than I imagined. More insane than I ever thought. Since you are determined to do evil, then don't blame me. I won't let you get away with what happened this time. Fine, I'm waiting for you. This was the same outcome as in my past life. I had long stopped expecting anything different, yet my heart still ached fiercely. So, how do you want to punish me? Shen Jingze, seeing my indifferent attitude, kicked the sofa. First, go to the hospital and sincerely apologize to Tiantian. I won't apologize, then you can just wait to go to jail. Let me tell you, Li Xiangwan, I will never take a woman as insane as you for my wife. If you go to jail, I will divorce you. Great, I couldn't ask for more. I took out the divorce agreement I had already prepared. Sign it, we're getting divorced right now. Shen Jingze looked at the divorce agreement and then at me. You were actually prepared. You knew I would ask for a divorce. Why, anything, no reason. Just sign it. Shen Jingze, who had never been thwarted by me before, was furious. He took the pen I handed him, signed the divorce agreement, and threw it at me. I did as you wished. I bent down to pick up the divorce agreement, and by the time I straightened up, Shen Jingze had already strode away. As he reached the door, he didn't forget to threaten me. Just you wait. The police will be coming for you soon. I sneered, took the divorce agreement, and headed straight for the Civil Affairs Bureau. An hour later, I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau with 2 divorce certificates in hand. The smoothness of the divorce process was a relief, and now the next thing to wait for is the police interrogation. I'm not at all afraid of the police interrogation. It's not like Zhong Tiantian is the only one who can find witnesses to testify against me. I've lived a long life and have my own resources, and I'm even more thoroughly prepared than Zhong Tiantian. The police did not come to me. I took the initiative to bring the evidence to them to report the crime. My evidence was very well prepared. Zhong Tiantian knew I could swim, so she prepared food laced with sleeping pills for me. Her original intention was to make me fall unconscious and drown in the river, ending my life. She just didn't expect that I would see through her plan, so Zhong Tiantian changed her plan on the spot. She intended to create a situation where I would be framed for pushing her. She, who could swim, had an accident in the water. Knowing Zhong Tiantian's intentions, I found several witnesses in advance. They were nurses from the hospital, and they immediately sent the food laced with sleeping pills that Zhong Tiantian had to be tested. They witnessed Zhong Tiantian pushing me into the river and also confirmed that Zhong Tiantian had purchased a sufficient amount of sleeping pills. As for why Zhong Tiantian suffered such severe injuries from harming others, it's because she can't swim and had extremely bad luck. She accidentally hit a hard rock that disfigured her face, and, as if by fate, a steel bar floating in the river punctured her uterus. Rocks and steel bars don't speak, and there are no traceable fingerprints to prove someone harmed her. Zhong Tiantian is left to swallow this bitter pill this time. I provide evidence to accuse Zhong Tiantian of committing a crime, and the evidence of her criminal acts is conclusive. Because she lost her uterus and is physically weak, the police are preparing to arrest her once she recovers. After divorcing Shen Jingzi, I had no attachments and immediately bought a train ticket to head south without hesitation. Punishing Zhong Tiantian is my goal, but it is not the ultimate goal. Zhong Tiantian is indeed detestable, but Shen Jingzi is also to blame. It's not enough that I just dealt with Zhong Tiantian. Knowing what happens next, I know Shen Jingzi will suffer greatly. Without the help of my past self, he will suffer terribly in the days to come. I'm waiting for Shen Jingzi's retribution. After leaving, I devoted all my energy to building my career. Knowing the direction ahead was a great help to me. I started from the bottom and worked my way up, achieving significant success in less than 5 years. As the spring breeze of reform and opening up swept across the land of China, I became one of the first to dive into the sea and reap the benefits. The company I founded expanded rapidly, and over a decade later, I became the first female billionaire by assets. I took my money and the team I gathered to open branches across the country, while also engaging in charity work everywhere. I never expected to meet Shen Jingzi during a charity visit in Jiangcheng. Over the past decade, Shen Jingzi had transformed from a dashing military officer to a disabled person confined to a wheelchair. I was speaking on the stage, and he was watching me from below in his wheelchair. When our eyes met, I looked understanding, but he was completely shocked. I saw Shen Jingzi's lips moving. Although I couldn't hear the sound, I could understand what he was saying. It was clearly the words Xiong Wan. After donating a large sum of money, I got into my car to leave, only to find Shen Jingzi in a wheelchair blocking my way. Xiangwan, do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you? I asked him indifferently. What do you want from me? I never intended to send you to prison, nor did I plan to divorce you. I was just angry. I tried to persuade Zhong Tian. Tian gave up on pursuing you, but by the time I convinced Zhong Tiantian, you had already left. Is this a belated apology and admission of fault? Even if it is, why should I accept his apology and admission of fault? Seeing me coldly staring at him without saying a word, Shen Jingzi's face darkened. He moved his lips and said, Xiangwan. I didn't know Zhong Tiantian could be so despicable. I was deceived by her all along. That's why I acted this way. Stop talking. I don't care. After all, we're already divorced, and I'm not interested in your affairs. I stared at Shen Jingzi and said word by word, could you please move away from my car? I'm in a hurry to see my husband and my son. Today is our 6th wedding anniversary. You're married. You're actually married and have a child. Shen Jingzi's face turned pale as he moved his wheelchair. My driver started the car, and as it began to move, Shen Jingzi suddenly spoke. Xiangwan, I had a dream. In the dream, you loved me deeply, never left my side, and we had a son. Is that so? I rolled down the window and looked at Shen Jingzi with a smile. Then there must be other things in that dream, right? Like how you ignored me for Zhong Tiantian, like how you sent me to prison because of Zhong Tiantian, and how you and your ungrateful son always favored Zhong Tiantian and bullied me. Shen Jingzi's face turned as pale as snow, and I smiled brightly. In your dream, were you in critical danger because of a great achievement? And did Zhong Tiantian beg a famous doctor on her knees to save you from the grasp of death? Then in the dream, you rose rapidly through the ranks, and you spent your whole life thanking Zhong Tiantian as your savior. Is that right? How did you know? Shen Jingzi asked me urgently. How I know is none of your business, but I have to tell you something. Do you know why you've been stuck in the same position every time after making a contribution, didn't stand up from the wheelchair? That's because I didn't run hundreds of miles to beg medical experts to save you like in the dream. So, you are disabled, so it was you who saved me in the previous life, not Zhong Tiantian. No wonder, I sneered, Shen Jingzi. Did you dream that I got a terminal illness and died miserably in prison? Shen Jingzi, what were you thinking? You must be relieved, right? After all, only when I die can you justifiably marry your Zhong Tiantian. No, that's not it. I didn't know you would die. I thought you were faking an illness. By the time I rushed back, you had already. I regret it so much. I regret it deeply. Is this considered a belated regret? But what use is it to me? Shen Jingzi murmured, Xiangwan. I know everything was Zhong Tiantian's fault. I didn't let her off. I punished Zhong Tiantian. She has just been released. She's in a miserable state. That puts my mind at ease. I closed the car window and instructed the driver, let's go. As the car drove away, Shen Jingzi in the wheelchair grew farther and farther from me. Seeing Jingzi's current state, I finally let out a sigh of relief. In this lifetime, I have no regrets. The car sped away. The mobile phone placed beside me rang. It was my current husband calling. I answered, and his gentle voice came through the phone. Xiangwan, our son and I are waiting for you. Okay, I'll be right back. No one can live in the past forever. Shen Jingzi is now a part of my history. I have a loving husband and an adorable son, in this life. I will no longer rely on men or trust them. I will be the queen of my own destiny. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.